reading some poems from a poetry anthology sent to me by my high school English teacher. By John Hollander, Adam's Task. Starts with Genesis 2:20, and Adam gave names to all cattle, to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. Thou paw paw paw, thou glurd, thou spotted glurd, thou white stap lurching through the high-grown brush, thou pliant-footed implex, thou awagaboo. Every burrower, each flyer came for the name he had to give. Gay first work, ever to be prior, not yet sunk to primitive. Thou Vertle, thou McFleary's Palma, thou. 3 types of grawl, thou Flisket, thou Kabash, thou comma-eared Moshock, thou all. Were in a fire of becoming, laboring to be burned away, then work, half measuring, half humming, would be as serious as play. Thou Pembler, thou Rivarn, thou greater Werit, and thou lesser one, thou Sproul, thou Zant, thou Lily Eater. Naming's over. Day is done. Okay. By Sylvia Plath. Daddy. You do not do any more black shoe in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or eschew. Daddy, I've had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with one gray toe big as a Frisco seal, and a head in the freakish Atlantic where it pours bean green over blue, and the waters off beautiful Nauset. I used to pray to recover you. Akdu. And the German tongue in the Polish town scraped flat by the roller of wars. But the name of the town is common. My Polak friend says there are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you. My tongue stuck in my jaw. It stuck in a barbed wire snare. Ick. I could barely speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene. An engine chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I began to think I may well be a Jew. The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck and my tarot pack and my tarot pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. I've always been scared of you with your Luftwaffe and your gobbledygoo and your neat mustache and your Aryan eye bright blue. Panzer man, oh you. Not God, but a swastika so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist. The boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. You stand at the blackboard, Daddy, and the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not any less black than the black man who bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20, I tried to die and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do. But they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck to me together like glue. But they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue. And then I knew what to do. I made a model of you. A man in black with a Mein Kampf look. And a look of that rack and the screw. And I said, I do. So, Daddy, I'm finally through. The black telephone's off at the root. The voices just can't worm through. If I've killed one man, I've killed two. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year. 7 years, if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now. There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stomping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, you bastard, I'm through. Oh, I love Sylvia Plath. Okay. By Mark Strand, The Tunnel. A man has been standing in front of my house for days. I peek at him from the living room window, and at night, unable to sleep, I shine my flashlight down on the lawn. He's always there. After a while, I open the front door just a crack and order him out of my yard. He narrows his eyes and moans. I slam the door and dash back to the kitchen, then up to the bedroom, then down. I weep like a schoolgirl and make obscene gestures through the window. I write large suicide notes and place them so he can read them easily. I destroy the living room furniture to prove I own nothing of value. When he seems unmoved, I decide to dig a tunnel to a neighboring yard. I seal the basement off from the upstairs with a brick wall. I dig hard, and in no time the tunnel is done. Leaving my pick and shovel below, I come out in front of a house and stand there too tired to move or even speak, hoping someone will help me. I feel I'm being watched. And sometimes I hear a man's voice, but nothing is done, and I've been waiting for days. By Nancy Willard, a hardware store as proof of the existence of God. I praise the brightness of hammers pointing east like the steel woodpeckers of the future, and dozens of hinges opening brass wings, and 6 new rakes shyly fanning their toes, and bins of hooks glittering into bees, and a rack of wrenches like the long bones of horses, and mailboxes sewing rows of silver chapels, and a company of plungers waiting for God to claim their thin legs and their big shoes and put them on and walk away laughing. In a world not perfect but not bad either, let there be glue, glaze, gum, and grabs, caulk also, and hooks, shackles, cables, and slips, and signs so spare a child may read them. Men, women, in, out, no parking, beware the dog. In the right hands, they can work wonders. By Dabney Stuart, Discovering My Daughter. Most of your life we have kept our separate places. After I left your mother, you knew an island, rented rooms, a slow coastal slide northward to Boston, and in summer another island hung at the country's tip. Would you have kept going all the way off the map? An absolute alien? Sometimes I shiver being almost forgetful enough to have let that happen. We've come the longer way under such pressure from one person to another. Our trip proves again the world is round, a singular island where people may come together as we have, making a singular place. By Margaret Atwood, Siren Song, from the Greek myth, one of the women whose irresistible songs lured sailors to the rocks. This is the one song everyone would like to learn, the song that is irresistible, the song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons even though they see the beached skulls, the song nobody knows because anyone who has heard it is dead, and the others can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret? And if I do, will you get me out of this birdsuit? I don't enjoy it here squatting on this island looking picturesque and mythical with these 2 feathery maniacs. I don't enjoy singing this trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you, only to you. Come closer. This song is a cry for help. Help me. Only you can. You are unique. At last. Alas. It is a boring song, but it works every time. By Stephen Dunn, The Sacred. After the teacher asked if anyone had a sacred place and the students fidgeted and shrank in their chairs, the most serious of them all said it was his car. Being in it alone, his tape deck playing things he'd chosen, and others knew the truth had been spoken and began speaking about their rooms, their hiding places, but the car kept coming up. The car in motion, music filling it, and sometimes one other person who understood the bright altar of the dashboard and how far away a car could take him from the need to speak or to answer. The key and having a key and putting it in and going. By Gladys Cardiff, Combing. Bending, I bow my head and lay my hand upon her hair, combing, and think how women do this for each other. My daughter's hair curls against the comb, wet and fragrant, orange parings. Her face, downcast, is quiet for one so young. I take her place. Beneath my mother's hands, I feel the braids drawn up tight as a piano wire and singing, vinegar rinsed. Sitting before the oven, I hear the orange coils tick the early hour before school. She combed her grandmother Matilda's hair using a comb made out of bone. Matilda rocked her oak wood chair, her face downcast, intent on tearing rags and strips to braid a cotton rug from bits of orange and brown. A simple act, preparing hair. Something women do for each other, plaiting the generations. By Craig Raine. A Martian sends a postcard home. Caxtons, these are books. Caxtons are mechanical birds with many wings, and some are treasured for their markings. They cause the eyes to melt or the body to shriek without pain. I've never seen one fly, but sometimes they perch on the hand. Mist is when the sky is tired of flight and rests its soft machine on ground. When the world is dim and the bookish light engravings under tissue paper. Rain is when the earth is television. It has the property of making colors darker. Model T is a room with the lock inside. A key is turned to free the world from movement. So quick, there is a film to watch for anything missed. But time is tied to the wrist, or kept in a box, ticking with impatience. In homes, a haunted apparatus sleeps that snores when you pick it up. If the ghost cries, they carry it to their lips and soothe it to sleep with sounds. And yet they wake it up deliberately by tickling it with a finger. Only the young are allowed to suffer openly. Adults go to a punishment room with water but nothing to eat. They lock the door and suffer the noises alone. No one is exempt, and everyone's pain has a different smell. At night, when all the colors die, they hide in pairs and read about themselves, in color, with their eyelids shut. By Alice Walker, Even As I Hold You. Even as I hold you, I think of you as someone gone far, far away. Your eyes the color of pennies in a bowl of dark honey, bringing sweet light to someone else. Your black hair slipping through my fingers as the flash of your head going round a corner. Your smile breaking before me, the flippant last turn of a revolving door emptying you out, changed away from me. Even as I hold you, I am letting you go. By Leon Stokebury, Evenings in, 1943 to 1970. For the first time in what must be the better part of 2 years now, I happened to hear Janice in her glory. Okay, I've got to start over. The poet went to Lamar State in Beaumont, Texas, and claims to have known Janis Joplin while he was in college. Okay. For the first time in what must be the better part of 2 years, I happened to hear Janice in her glory. All that tinctured syrup dripping off a razor blade on the radio today singing Summertime. And it took me back to this girl I knew. A woman, really, my first year writing undergraduate poetry at the Maribel B. Lamar State College of Technology in Beaumont, Texas, back in 1966. This woman was the latest in a line, the latest study of my friend John Coyle that spring. And I remember she was plain. She was short and plain and wore her brown hair up in a sort of bun and back that made her plainer still. I don't know where John met her, but word went round she had moved back in with Mom and Dad down in Port Arthur to get her head straight, to attend Lamar, to study history, after several years in San Francisco, where she had drifted into a bad scene taking heroin. I was 20, still lived with Mom and Dad myself, and so knew nothing about bad scenes. But I do remember once or twice each month that spring, John would give a party with this woman always there. And always as the evening's end came on, this woman, silent for hours, would reveal from thin air her guitar, settle in a chair, release her long hair from the bun it was in, and begin. Her hair flowed over her shoulders, and the ends of the strands of hair, like tarnished brass in lamplight, would brush and drag across the sides of the guitar as this woman bent over it. How low and guttural and slow and torchlit, how amber her song, how absolutely unlike the tiny nondescript a few minutes before. And I remember also from later on that spring, from May of that year, 2 nights in particular. The first night was a party this woman gave at her parents' house. Her parents' home was beige. The bricks of the parents' home were built with beige. The entire house was carpeted in beige. John's girl greeted everyone at the door, a martini in one hand and a lit cigarette and an oriental ivory cigar holder in the other, laughing for once and tossing back her long brown hair. All the women wore black, full-length party dresses. And I remember the young woman's father, how odd he seemed in his charcoal suit and tie and his gray hair. How unamused. Then John Coyle was drunk. He spilled his beer across the beige front room carpet, that darker dampness sinking in. The father vanished from the scene. The next week, we double dated. I convinced John and this girl to see a double feature, Irma Ladouse and Tom Jones, at the Pines Theater. And I can't recall John's girl saying just one thing that night. After the films, John was quizzical, contentious, full of ridicule for movies I had guaranteed he would enjoy. He turned and asked her what she thought, and in the softest of tones, a vague rumor of honeysuckle in the air, she almost whispered, I thought they were beautiful. That was the last time I saw her. The last thing I heard her say. A few weeks later, she drove over to John's house in the middle of the afternoon and caught him in bed with Suzanne Moraine, a graduate assistant from the English department at Lamar. John told me later that when she saw them in the bedroom, she ran into the kitchen, picked up a broom, and began to sweep the floor, weeping. When John sauntered in, she threw the broom at him and ran out the door, got in her car, and drove away. And from that day on, no one saw that woman in Beaumont again. The next day, she moved to Austin, and later on, I heard back to San Francisco. I remember when John told me this with a semi-shocked expression on his face. He turned and looked up and said, "You know, I guess she must have really loved me." I was 20 years old. What did I know? What could I say? I could not think of anything to say except, "Yes, I guess so." It was summertime. Thus runs the world away. By Timothy Murphy, The Track of a Storm. We grieve for the 12 trees we lost last night, pillars of our community, old friends and confidants dismembered in our sight, stripped of the crowns by the unruly winds. There were no baskets to receive their heads, no women knitting by the guillotines, only two sleepers rousted from their beds by fusillades and hailstorms on the screens. Her nest shattered, her battered hatchlings drowned. A stunned and silent junco watches me chainsawing limbs from corpses of the downed, clearing the understory of debris while supple saplings which survived the blast lay claim to light and liberty at last. By Mark Jarman, After Disappointment. To lie in your child's bed when she is gone is calming as anything I know. To fall asleep, her books arranged above your head, is to admit that you have never been so tired, so enchanted by the spell of your own grown body. To feel small instead of blocking out the light. To feel alone, not knowing what you should or shouldn't feel, is to find out, no matter what you've said about the cramped escapes and obstacles you plan and face and have to call the world, that there remains these places occupied by children, yours if lucky, like the girl who finds you here and lies down by your side. And the last one I'm going to read from this anthology, by Naomi Shihab, The Traveling Onion. And it starts with an excerpt from Better Living Cookbook. It is believed that the onion originally came from India. In Egypt, it was an object of worship. Why? I haven't been able to find out. From Egypt, the onion entered Greece and on to Italy, then into all of Europe. The poem reads, when I think of how far the onion has traveled just to enter my stew today, I could kneel and praise all small forgotten miracles. Crackly paper peeling on the drain board, pearly layers and smooth agreement. The way knife enters onion, straight, and onion falls apart on the chopping block. A history revealed. And I would never scold the onion for causing tears. It is right that tears fall for something small and forgotten. How at meal we sit to eat, commenting on texture of meat and herbal aroma, but never on the translucence of onion, now limp, now divided for its traditionally honorable career, for the sake of others, disappear. All right, hope you've enjoyed those. I am forever grateful for Ms. Harris for passing on the love of literature and poetry to me. If you enjoyed this, feel free to like and subscribe. I have lots of short videos where I'm reading poetry. I've also read quite a few short stories. I've read Frankenstein, 1984, and I'm currently working on Wuthering Heights on my channel.